Hey guys, it's Holly and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing a different video and it's kind of like a new series I want to start on my channel, and it's going to be called Storytime with Holly, just because my name's Holly and it's basically where I'm going to sit down and tell you stories. So, Storytime. I thought I would do this just because I have lots of stories in my life that I find are somewhat out of the blue and a little bit less ordinary than what the regular person would have, mainly due to my bad luck with situations and things like that. I thought I'd kick it off with like my most told story, and a story that I get lots of questions about, and that is when I got hit by a car. And I wasn't just hit by a car, I was also run over by a car. So why not tell you guys this story? So on the 17th of September in 2014, so last year, I was on my way to school. And so for me to get to school, I have to catch two buses. And the way I catch them is I catch one, and in New Zealand we drive on the left side of the road. So I catch one on the left side of the road, then I have to cross this road and catch the other one. And there's no crossing. It's like the bus stop is in between two crossings, which are probably 100 metres that way and then like 200 metres that way. So there's really no way that I can like walk up and cross and walk back and still get there in time to catch my second bus. So in this particular morning I was in a really big rush because I had my AS drama performance, which was getting recorded and then sent over to England to be graded for my drama like end of year final mark. And so it was a very important performance that I was doing with two other classmates where we made up our own play, and so it was very important that I got there, and I wanted to get there early so I could calm myself down and prepare myself for the performance. And so I was running late to school and I had many bags. So I got off my first bus and I remember just waiting for the doors to open so I can get off with my other bus pulled up on the other side of the road. So I just had to run, and I don't know what was going through my head, but the only thing that I could think of was run and get there. So I got off my first bus, ran around in front of it, which you should not do. However, my parents never really took buses, so I was never told never run in front of a bus. I was like, that was a completely unheard of thing for me. I know that now after getting hit by a car because I ran in front of a bus, but I didn't know that then. So in case you don't know that either, don't run in front of a bus, you'll get hit by a car. Anyway, so I ran in front of the bus and just slammed straight into the side of a car. Yeah, I also kind of maybe forgot to look both ways as well. I got hit in the middle of the car. I smashed the side mirror of the car. My face got hit, my nose got hit, and I was bleeding. Like my nose was bleeding, my mouth was bleeding, and like so there was just blood everywhere all over me. The back tire rolled over my left foot. Yeah. But basically I was in so much shock when it first happened. I didn't realise I was covered in blood. I thought it suddenly started raining because it just felt like water, and I didn't really, like, all my bags were just lying all over the ground. My phone somehow flew out of my hand but managed to not smash, even though it landed like face down. I don't know how that happened, but my phone was fine. So I was like walking to go pick up my phone, and the people on the bus that was still there got out and they were like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" And they obviously, I was covered like in blood. I was drenched in it and I didn't realise I was covered in blood, so I was like, yeah, I'm fine, like, you know, I can go to school. I was like trying to pick up my bags and like trying to like hobble along. Then I looked down at my shoe and my shoe didn't look like a shoe anymore. It was like all like, it just was so deformed, and I was like, oh, that just doesn't look normal. And then suddenly I couldn't feel my foot, like, at all. I had no feeling in it, and it's because of the adrenaline, so you couldn't feel pain. And I was like, oh, that's funny, like, where did my foot go? Okay, so like I said before, I was covered in blood and I was just trying to like hobble and grab my things and get to school because all I could think about was that drama show I had on that night. And so I was just like, no, this lady came off, and she is actually, we found out she was a doctor that worked at the hospital, and so she was like, are you okay, like, are you dizzy or anything? Do you feel okay? Like, can you walk and stuff? She looked at my foot and she was like, you need to come and sit down at the bus stop. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Then I like felt my shirt and looked at my hands and they were just drenched in blood, and I didn't realise how much I was bleeding, and I didn't realise how scary it must have looked because I was just covered like from like hair down in blood, and I was like, oh my god, okay. Freaking out a little bit because I didn't realise how bad it was. realised my teeth kind of hurt. I had braces at the time, and turns out I fractured most of my braces in the front here, and so that wasn't good. And so I ended up just going with her and lying down on the what's it called? I just lay down on the bus stop, and I just lay down. She got my phone, I unlocked it for her, and she called my mum. And luckily this is probably about just over a kilometre from my house, so it was not very far away from my house where this happened. And my dad was at work, but he's a firefighter, so he can zoom around quite often. So then my mum called him. Only issue was, when she called my mum, she didn't tell her what happened. She just said that her daughter was in an accident and she's at this address, so come here now. And then my mum called my dad saying, Holly was in an accident, they won't tell me what happened to her. So my dad thought I was dead, and my mum was not sure if I was alive or not. And I was just sitting there being like, just not really sure what to say or what to do. I just suddenly felt really, really exhausted and wanted to go to sleep, and that's because of the shock and the adrenaline and like the sudden like lack of energy my body had. So I was in so much shock right now, and so my foot started hurting and I could feel it again, and it was just like hot and burning. So I took my shoe off because my foot swelled up instantly and couldn't fit my shoe anymore, and it just didn't look like a foot. Like, it looked like it was just, I don't have any photos because of how gross it was, but it was like this, my foot's really tiny, like I've got really slim feet, but it was like this big and like purple, and there was like bones sticking out where bones aren't, like they won't stick it out, but it was just not a foot, okay? It was so gross, so gross. I was just like, I don't know what to do, I can't see, and then I kind of felt like a sharp pain in my hip, but I kind of ignored it because my foot was more painful than anything else, and I just wanted to sleep. And then this girl was like, okay, we need to call the ambulance. So we called the ambulance, and they arrived just about a little bit after my mum arrived. So my mum came, and she was like freaking the flip out. And so she came over, she gave me a hug, she made sure I was okay. I was talking to her, and then the ambulance arrived, and they were going to put me into the ambulance, but then my mum's like, she has a broken back. Another story. I did break my back. My back is broken. And so they thought that I might have done something really bad to my back, so they put me in a stretcher with a neck brace on and chucked me into the back of the ambulance. So I was sitting in the ambulance, and then they gave me morphine just because it's what helps with pain, especially in like really traumatic events like getting hit by a car. So I had lots of morphine going through me. They actually gave me too much morphine where I went a little bit crazy, I guess you could say. I got the IV put in my arm so they could like give me like painkillers and stuff, and like really intense pain medication and things like that, and they just started looking for like obvious injuries like my nose and like my foot and things like that. So my mum rode with me in the ambulance just so that she could make sure I was still responsive and I didn't fall asleep, just because they didn't know how bad the injuries were, and if I fell asleep and fell into a coma then that would cause a lot more issues, so they just wanted to keep me awake until I got to the hospital just to make sure that I wasn't going to die. Not really, just to make sure I would be okay. So fast forward to the hospital, we got there, and I was just getting wheeled around everywhere on a gurney and things like that, and since I was hit by a car I was like put forward past all the people in the emergency room and just put straight into one of the like lab things. So they started off by cutting off my shirt just because I was still in that with a neck brace on and lying flat, and I didn't know if I could sit up yet, so to cut off my shirt just to make sure that like, just so they could feel around my neck and my arms and things like that, and so that it was covered in blood and stuff as well, so just to get that out of the way and things like that. And they started like looking at my foot and seeing if I could move it and things like that, which I couldn't, but yeah. And then I was complaining about my hip, and I was like, my hip is really sore, it's like a sharp pain, and they were like, oh, I don't know what that is, like we'll have a look at it later. And then so we went in and we got some x-rays done, and I got a full body x-ray just to make sure my spine was okay as well as my foot, only they stuffed up the x-rays. So I got my head x-rayed, I got my torso like from here down to my pelvis x-rayed, and then I got my legs x-rayed, and then I got my ankle x-rayed. Not my foot, but my ankle. So they thought I was complaining about a bad ankle, but my whole foot was swollen, including my ankle, so you couldn't really tell it was broken or not. So my ankle wasn't broken, so they were like, okay, you're okay, nothing is broken. Somehow, nothing is broken. But then I kept complaining about my hip. I was like, my hip kind of hurts, like I don't know what it is. And they're like, well, your hip isn't broken, but then they cut through my school skirt, which is like my uniform, and they found a hole, like a gash in my hip that looks like something out of a horror movie. It was like this deep, and it was like a chunk like taken out of my hip. Like it looked like a bite from an animal or something, and my hip was like just like, it was just dead flesh, like it was gross. And so they were like, oh, that is not good. So then they cut through that. I was wearing shorts underneath as well, and it was so gross because like my shorts were bright pink and all you could see was like a massive circle of blood, and it was like, it was so gross. It just looked like something out of a horror movie. I was like, put my own leg away, please. So gross. So anyways, they then had to stitch that up, so I had to get like something like 14 injections just to like numb it, and then I had to get someone to stitch it up, which took quite a while because I'm very squeamish and I did not like that. And then so that got stitched up, and ew, not fun. First time getting stitches, don't want them again. And then so we had to do something about my foot because it was still swollen even though it wasn't broken. So I got like a bandage put on my foot, which is really, really, really tight, just to compress it and try and get rid of like the fluid buildup and like stop the swelling. And then I was given crutches, and this was quite stupid. I just got hit by a car. I was extremely dizzy. I couldn't see right. I also had a lot of morphine. I thought I was on an episode of Grey's Anatomy. I kept asking for Patrick Dempsey. I mean, why would you then give me crutches? Take me along a corridor into one of the fire escape staircases where the lights were off, so it was like, it wasn't pitch black but it was dark, and say, oh, walk up these concrete stairs for me, then turn around and walk down them. I walked up them, turned around, walked down one of them, and then just fell. And so then they're like, okay, maybe we'll try you out on crutches afterwards, because I just want to make sure I could walk on crutches. So anyways, I was probably in the hospital for about 3, 4, 5 hours, so like a long time but not too long, and then I was allowed to go home. And so I didn't have any clothes, annoyingly, because they all got cut off me, so Mum had to go to Country Road and grab me something to wear, so she got me this cute little playsuit, and I still wear it, it's really cute. Anyway, so I got a cute little playsuit out of it, and so I was wearing that. I got home and I just had to keep my leg up and things like that, and I had so many like drugs running through me at that time where I was just really energetic and I was feeling okay. And so that night I did still do the drama show because I didn't want to put it off, even though we could have put it off till a week later. I just wanted to get it over and done with, and I had worked so hard for it that I wanted to get it done. So I did end up doing it, which was a pretty big surprise, and I was covered, like I had so many bruises on my legs. They weren't just like little ones, they were like big, gigantic purple bruises. So that was kind of gross, but yeah, I still did the show, and we were lucky that my character was the only character out of all of the people in the show that could have been on crutches. So I was lucky in that sense. I did that show that night, and there was another show the next night as well, which is just as important. It's the same show, and I did that as well, but I was on different pain medication that day, and I was on sleeping pills, so I was so tired, and that show was really unenergetic, but it's okay because I survived. Anyway, so then that was my birthday present weekend, so I was going to Melbourne that weekend, and so I was on crutches with a sore foot and an open wound on my hip, which was stitched up, but like it was still like a massive wound, and it got infected in the end, so it was gross. So I had to go to Melbourne. Well, I didn't have to, I wanted to go to Melbourne to watch Les Mis, and we went shopping, and it was so hard getting around Melbourne, because if you don't know what it is, it's like, think of New York, but like smaller, but like, you know, like a city with just tons of beautiful shops and things like that, and you kind of walk everywhere, because it's like the best mean of transport. So we went up to Melbourne, and we just walked around the whole city, and my foot on the plane just swelled up a lot, but then on the plane ride back to Auckland it swelled up like another like inch on each side, so it got really massive. And then my uncle, who's one of New Zealand's best orthopaedic surgeons, he said that he wanted to see me when I got back from Melbourne, just to see my foot, to make sure it was healing okay and things like that. And also because he had like a really bad feeling about it, so we went to see him, and he asked me to get some more x-rays done, but this time not of my ankle, actually of my foot. And turns out my foot was severely broken, so I've completely snapped in half my fifth metatarsal. So this is my pinky foot. It's like this part here, where it's like where it moves and stuff, I snapped that, and say these are like where the toes join on to your foot, I crushed all of my like joints that led across my foot. And so if my uncle didn't find that, I would never been able to have walked properly or danced again. So that was a pretty massive luck stroke. And so if it was anyone else that didn't have my uncle, they probably would have faced never walking again because the doctors marked up on the x-ray. So that was pretty intense. So then I got my foot straight away put into a cast, which was in a cast for 4 weeks, and then I had it in a moon boot for another 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks, and then I was still on crutches as well, and then I was on crutches without a moon boot, and then I started walking again. So it was a really massive process to heal it, and so that's what happened next, and it meant that I had to take the next week of school off, which was my last week of school, and then all holidays I was just sitting there with my leg up. I was supposed to go on a trip to Australia again to watch my sister play soccer, and that was for the next week, and I wasn't able to do that, so that was a bit of a downer, and I just spent the whole holidays with my leg up on like 6 pillows trying to stop my foot from swelling and fix the broken bone. So that's what happened. I'm just lucky that I ran into the side of the car and not the front of the car. I also had to go back to the orthodontist and get my braces fixed because many of them fell off, and so I had to get them retightened and refixed as well. So it was a pretty massive event that happened, and it's the closest I've been to a near-death experience, and it was really scary. I think looking back on it, it's more scary than it was then, because then I knew I was okay and I could like see, like I couldn't see myself being in any like life or death danger, but for everyone else around me, they were just so scared that I could have died. Like I remember texting my friends at school being like, I just got hit by a car, I'm not going to be at school for a while, and people just freaking out, and like there were rumours going around that something really serious happened to me and things like that. So it was a really scary event, and thinking back on it, I understand why everyone was so scared, because if I heard someone got hit by a car that's one of my friends, I would freak out. So I get them, I get where they're coming from. So yeah, it was a pretty massive accident, and not something I really want to ever do again. If you were planning on getting hit by a car, I really do not recommend it. It really hurts a lot. And if you're wondering about like the driver, he didn't just hit and run, like he pulled over and stopped. He was an Indian man, and I felt really bad for him because he didn't really speak very good English, and he just, like looking at me, he was so shocked, and I felt so bad for him because I was like, I'm sorry, like it looks a lot worse than it is. Well, it wasn't really a lot worse than it is, but like, you know, I'm okay, like I'm not dying, I'm going to be fine. But he was just like freaking out, and then the police officers also came onto the scene of the accident, just because whenever a car hits a person, or like whenever there's any car accident, the police have to be involved to see like who has to pay for what. Since I wiped off his entire side view mirror, which is what cut my hip open, it was my fault, so my family had to pay for it. However, in the end, he paid for it himself, and he didn't like want to give us anything because we already had medical events to happen and things like that. So he was just like, well, she just got hit, like it's a small price, it's not too bad, I'll pay it, you guys just deal with your broken daughter. So that's what happened. Thank God that like New Zealand has medical insurance for every single citizen, not like in America where you have to pay like a ton of money if like an accident happens. Everything was covered by ACC. That was good, so we didn't have to pay for any of that, and it meant that my tickets to overseas weren't to Australia that we had to cancel weren't paid for as well, so that's also a plus. Like it didn't cost my parents or me any like more money, but it was just a really scary experience. And at the time it was like the best conversation starter because I was on crutches with like a cast on, and people would be like, oh my gosh, what happened? And I'll be like, I got hit by a car, and I'll be like, what? Just because it sounds like really badass. That's like only the good thing about it, is that it sounds really badass. So yeah, that's my story about how I got hit by a car last year. And yeah, it was pretty serious. It was very painful. It nearly made me not walk or dance again. and I could have very well died. So the lesson you guys should learn out of this is, number 1, never run in front of a bus. Number 2, look both ways before you cross the road. And number 3, if you end up in hospital and have had a lot of morphine, Patrick Dempsey is probably not going to come to your side, so it's not something worth crying about. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this story, and if you want me to do more story time videos, then make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and I will. That was my story on how I got hit by a car. Yeah, it's pretty gross, pretty gruesome. Not something I would recommend at all. No. Don't do it. So I hope this just makes you guys realise how safe you have to be around roads, even though this was the road I crossed every single day for the past 2 years, every morning and every afternoon. It still managed to be that one road I got hit on. I was just lucky that like it was in front of people on the bus that could help me, otherwise I probably would have tried to walk off and go to school, or I would have not known what to do. I wouldn't have had people call the ambulance for me because I couldn't see. Like my vision, I blacked out when I got hit. Like my vision was blurry, I didn't know what was going on, I couldn't look at my phone, I was shaking, I was in so much shock, so I couldn't even like type in my PIN number properly, and I had to tell someone it so they could do it for me. It was very, very scary. I'm just lucky that my parents were so close and that there were people that helped me, because otherwise I would have been in a lot more trouble than I was. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that story, or like found it interesting. I don't really know if you can enjoy it, but like, you know, found it interesting and stuff. And that you guys learned a little bit more about me and my experiences in life, of my clumsiness and stupidity, because I'm not just called blonde because of my hair colour. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Smile, be safe and stay beautiful, guys. And when I say be safe, I mean be safe. Please don't go and get hit by a car. I don't want to jinx this for you guys, but like, it was really ironic because this police officer came to our school to teach us about road safety, and then 2 weeks later I got hit by a car. So I don't want to tell you this video and then 2 weeks later you get hit by a car. So please just be really careful about roads. I would hate it if any of you guys got hit by a car, because it's not something you want to experience, I can assure you. It's not. So yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful, safe day, and I'll see you in my next video. Adios.